The Veil of Whispering Shadows. The wind that night carried more than the usual chill. It carried whispers, fragments of secrets that seemed to curl around the edges of every stone and branch. Elric had always felt that the forests surrounding his village were alive. But tonight, as the moon carved jagged silver patterns across the ground, that feeling had intensified into something almost tangible. The village elders spoke of the veil, an invisible boundary that separated the known from the unknowable. Few dared to cross it, and fewer still returned with more than echoes in their minds. Elric stood at the edge of the clearing, the soft hum of unseen creatures brushing against his awareness. His heart thrummed not from fear, but from a restless curiosity that had been growing for years, an itch that no tale or warning could quell. He had discovered a fragment of an old map in the archives of the village library, a map that promised to lead beyond the familiar paths, past the rivers that whispered in their own tongues, to a place called the Shimmering Hollow. The first steps were always the hardest, and tonight, he stepped into the forest with nothing but a lantern and a knapsack filled with essential tools. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, like they were trying to guide him, or perhaps to warn him. Every rustle in the underbrush carried a rhythm, a subtle beat that matched his own pulse. Time became a fluid thing, bending and folding as he moved deeper, until the familiar outlines of the village disappeared completely. Hours passed, or was it minutes? The moon slid across the sky like a ghost ship, casting its cold light on twisted roots and glimmering stones. Then, without warning, a low murmur began to rise, forming words in a language that felt ancient, older than the village, older than the mountains themselves. Elric could not understand it fully, yet he felt compelled to follow it. Each step took him deeper, yet the path did not feel random. It was as if the forest itself was shaping his journey, revealing its mysteries in careful increments. Then he saw her, a figure, translucent yet unmistakably there, standing atop a mound of stones that seemed to pulse with faint light. Her eyes reflected the moonlight, but not in a natural way. They shimmered with the knowledge of centuries, of stories untold. She did not speak, yet her presence communicated a profound urgency, a summons that resonated in the marrow of his bones. Elric took a hesitant step forward. The ground beneath him felt alive, the leaves whispering encouragement as if cheering him onward. "You seek the veil," she said, and her voice was both everywhere and nowhere, like a wind passing through the branches. "Few have the courage, fewer the purpose. What you desire may change you, may take from you, but it will never be meaningless." Elric swallowed, unsure if he could speak, yet the words formed anyway. I need to know what lies beyond. I've always felt there's something more." The figure nodded, and a pathway of glowing moss revealed itself, winding like a silver river into the heart of the forest. "Then follow, but remember, every shadow has a story, and every story demands its listener. Are you prepared to witness, to understand, to carry what you find?" He nodded, more from instinct than certainty, and stepped onto the path. The forest responded immediately. Trees shifted subtly, branches bending like archways to guide him, and the ground beneath his feet hummed with a rhythm that felt like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Strange symbols glimmered on stones along the way, symbols that seemed to dance and rearrange as he walked. Every so often, the lantern flickered, revealing fleeting glimpses of creatures that seemed woven from the mist, their forms elegant and alien, their gaze inscrutable. Yet none approached. None threatened. All seemed to observe, like ancient witnesses recording his journey. Eventually, the path opened into a glade. At the center was a pond, its surface unnaturally still, reflecting not the moon but a swirling sky of colors that no earthly eye should perceive. The figure gestured toward it. "Look," she whispered, and the words vibrated in the air with such intensity that Elric felt them in his chest, as if they were being etched into him. He knelt beside the pond, peering into its depths. Scenes shifted and unfolded like living tapestries, memories not his own, moments from ages long past, civilizations rising and falling, mountains shaping themselves into impossible geometries. Each vision was accompanied by a sense of rhythm, a melody that resonated in his mind even as he remained silent. He realized then that this pond did not merely reflect. It revealed, it taught, it invited the watcher to step beyond perception itself. Hours, days, or perhaps mere minutes passed. Elric did not notice the time. He saw the echo of a forgotten festival, where beings of light danced with shadows in perfect harmony. He saw the construction of monuments that defied logic, rising from the earth as if the world itself had willed them into existence. He felt joy, awe, and a subtle, almost painful awareness that the world he knew was but a fragment of something immense and infinitely older. The figure remained by his side, silent now. Yet in her gaze, he understood a warning. Knowledge was a gift and a burden intertwined. The Vale of Whispering Shadows was not merely a place. It was a threshold, a test of perception and endurance. To step through meant to embrace both wonder and uncertainty, to carry the weight of what one had seen without losing oneself. Suddenly, a ripple disturbed the pond, sending concentric circles outward. Elric felt a tug, subtle at first, then insistent, as if the pond itself was calling him to step closer, to immerse himself completely. Hesitation struck, but the presence of the figure reassured him. There would be no turning back. But perhaps that was not the point. Perhaps the point was to move forward, to witness, to transform. He reached toward the surface, fingers brushing the water. The instant he did, light engulfed him. It was not blinding, nor was it warm. It simply was. A sensation of being everywhere and nowhere washed over him, and then, as quickly as it began, it stilled. Elric stood in a place that seemed familiar and alien simultaneously. The forest around him had shifted. The trees had elongated into spires, leaves shimmered with iridescence, and the ground felt both solid and impossibly pliant. Shadows moved with intention, bending around him like rivers of darkness carrying whispers he could almost comprehend. The figure's voice came again, softer now. "You are here. You have crossed the first threshold. Remember, the veil does not yield its secrets easily. Every choice, every glance, every heartbeat matters. Walk carefully, for the path will shape you as surely as you shape it." Elric inhaled, feeling the weight and the wonder of it. He knew instinctively that this was only the beginning. Ahead lay realms that would challenge every assumption, worlds that could not be understood without being lived. Yet beneath the awe, a spark of something deeper glimmered. A determination, a curiosity, a stubborn refusal to turn away. As he took the first step forward into this transformed forest, the whispers coalesced into a coherent rhythm, like a song of the cosmos. They carried names, stories, warnings, and invitations all at once. He could feel the weight of histories not his own pressing gently against his mind, urging him onward. Somewhere in the distance, the faint glimmer of a structure appeared, a tower of crystalline light, impossibly tall, crowned with what seemed like frozen starlight. The figure did not follow. Her purpose had been fulfilled. Her role as guide concluded. Yet her presence lingered, a memory in the air, a promise in the pulse of the forest. Elric understood that he must navigate this realm alone, with only the lessons of the whispers and the guidance embedded in the landscape. Every step would matter, every sound would speak, every shadow would reveal. And then, as he approached the crystalline tower, the first true test began. From the ground, shapes emerged, faint and shifting, forming pathways of light and shadow. They were neither obstacle nor aid, yet they demanded a choice. To step left was to follow instinct. To step right was to follow intuition. To remain still was to risk stagnation. Elric's heart beat in perfect synchrony with the rhythm of the forest, and he knew that hesitation was the only danger. He stepped forward, guided by an inexplicable trust in the whispers, and felt the ground respond, bending subtly to his passage. At that moment, he realized that the veil was not merely a barrier, it was alive. It listened, it learned, it tested. Every thought, every intention, every emotion shaped it as much as it shaped him. The forest was no longer a backdrop. It was a participant, a teacher, a mirror, and a challenge. and as the crystalline tower drew nearer, gleaming with the knowledge of countless ages, Elric felt a pulse of anticipation unlike anything he had ever known. He was about to learn the first truth of the Vale of Whispering Shadows, that some journeys demand surrender, yet the surrender itself is a form of mastery. The forest hummed around him, the whispers weaving into a melody that promised wonders, trials, and revelations yet to come. With a final glance at the path he had traveled, Elric stepped fully into the unknown, ready to confront whatever mysteries awaited him within the heart of the Vale. The wind rose once more, carrying its endless murmurs, and he walked forward, aware that nothing would ever be the same again. The shadows parted, the whispers coalesced, and the adventure had truly begun. Elric moved through the forest as if it were breathing around him, each step measured by the pulse of unseen rhythms. The crystalline tower now loomed closer, its facets catching light that seemed to exist without source. It was beautiful, terrifying, and alive, and he felt the weight of anticipation press upon his chest. Every whisper, every flicker of shadow seemed to ripple in response to his heartbeat. The Vale was watching, testing, learning as much as it revealed. As he drew near, the path beneath his feet changed. Where moments ago there had been solid ground, now lay a series of stepping stones suspended over an abyss of mist. The fog shimmered faintly, reflecting impossible constellations that moved with deliberate patterns, like a living map written in light. Elric hesitated, then recalled the whispers, the trust he had placed in their rhythm. He stepped forward. With each movement, the stones adjusted subtly, tilting, rising, and falling as if acknowledging his resolve. From the mist, figures emerged, neither entirely human nor entirely ethereal. They glided hovering, yet seemed to walk the air as one would a path. Their forms shimmered in shades of gold and indigo, and their eyes, oh, their eyes, held not malice but understanding of all the ages. They spoke without words, not in sound but in resonance, impressions that touched his mind and heart directly. Elric realized they were not guardians but guides, echoes of travelers who had crossed the Vale before him, leaving traces of their insight behind. "You are far from the village now," a voice resonated in his mind, soft yet firm. "The Vale does not give freely. Every step is both lesson and challenge. Look beyond the obvious. See what is hidden between the rhythms of reality." He pressed on, stepping carefully across the stones, feeling their gentle sway beneath him, until the tower's base rose in front of him. It was vast, impossibly intricate. Its walls were alive with patterns that shifted as he observed them, never repeating, yet somehow forming a coherent story. Scenes of people, places, and events that seemed familiar and alien all at once played across the crystal surface. Elric realized that each reflection was a choice, a memory, or perhaps a truth waiting to be understood. As he reached out to touch the crystalline surface, the tower pulsed. Light radiated outward, and the mist coalesced into forms of animals, creatures both known and imagined, moving in slow, deliberate choreography. They surrounded him, not threatening, but guiding. Each step he took toward the tower revealed new paths and new challenges. It was no longer a linear journey. It was a labyrinth woven from perception, intuition, and courage. He paused at the threshold and felt a presence behind him. The figure from before, now faint, almost a memory, whispering in tones of caution and encouragement. "Remember, Elric, the Vale is not merely a test of strength, but of understanding. What you see is shaped by what you carry within. Do not carry fear. Carry wonder." Taking a deep breath, he entered the tower. Inside, the crystalline walls refracted light into endless prisms, creating corridors that seemed to stretch infinitely. The whispers grew louder, forming a melody of knowledge, invitation, and mystery. Each corridor offered a choice, left or right, up or down, forward or stillness. Elric noticed that every choice altered the pattern of the tower, revealing new symbols, new visions. He understood that hesitation was itself a decision, and action carried consequences both subtle and profound. In the central chamber, a pool of liquid crystal shimmered with a depth that defied understanding. The surface reflected not his own image, but the possibilities of who he could become, shaped by the choices he made within the veil. He knelt beside it and touched the surface, feeling an immediate connection. Visions flooded him, skies of shifting color, forests that sang, cities built upon impossible geometry. He glimpsed echoes of those who had come before, their triumphs, their discoveries, their moments of wonder. Elric realized that the veil was not merely a boundary between worlds, it was a living archive of experience, memory, and consciousness. It responded to intention, curiosity, and bravery. Each whisper, each shadow, each pulse of light carried knowledge meant to be absorbed, understood, and carried forward. The realization was dizzying and exhilarating, and he felt his mind expand in ways he could neither control nor fully comprehend. Suddenly, the pool stirred and a ripple spread across the surface, forming the image of a path, detailed, intricate, and luminous. The figures of animals from before emerged once more, leading the way. Elric understood this was the next stage. He must walk the path laid before him, interpret its meaning, and endure its revelations. To move forward was to trust both himself and the veil, to accept that guidance and uncertainty were inseparable. He stepped onto the path, and immediately the environment responded. Colors deepened, shadows shifted, and the whispering became coherent voices, speaking in a language that felt at once alien and intimate. Each voice told a story, posed a riddle, offered insight. Elric listened, understanding that comprehension required immersion, not mere observation. The veil demanded engagement, attention, and empathy. Time became meaningless. He walked through visions of oceans that flowed like liquid glass, mountains that bent toward the sky in impossible curves, and forests that shimmered with spectral light. He met travelers of the veil, beings who were more essence than body, who offered guidance, lessons, and moments of clarity. With each interaction, Elric felt his understanding deepen, a quiet sense of harmony forming between him and the living landscape of the veil. Yet challenges arose. In moments of reflection, shadows became tangible, pressing upon his perception, testing his resolve. Doubt, confusion, and fear manifested as obstacles, not of the physical world, but of the mind. He realized that the veil revealed inner truths as much as outer wonders. To progress, he had to reconcile with himself, confront uncertainties, and embrace the paradoxes presented. Every hesitation, every thought, every heartbeat shaped the unfolding reality. Hours or perhaps days passed. The crystalline tower now behind him shimmered faintly, signaling the completion of one stage and the approach of another. The path before him led into a valley bathed in iridescent light, where shadows played freely and the whispers converged into a symphony of understanding. Elric knew instinctively that the next revelation awaited there, that the veil's deeper mysteries would require all he had learned thus far. He felt anticipation coil in his chest. Not fear, but excitement, curiosity, and resolve. The forest, the tower, the whispers, all were teachers, guides, and companions in this unfolding journey. And as he stepped into the valley, the first true revelation of the veil awaited, a place where perception, choice, and imagination merged, revealing the infinite possibilities of existence beyond the known world. The veil had begun to teach him its most profound lesson, that to truly see, one must surrender to the journey, embrace uncertainty, and allow wonder to guide each step. The whispers sang, the shadows danced, and Elric walked forward, ready to face whatever truths awaited him in the heart of the veil of whispering shadows. The valley stretched endlessly, yet it did not feel empty. Every step Elric took was accompanied by subtle shifts in light and shadow, each one carrying a message he could almost comprehend. The air was alive with sound, not a noise of the world. He knew, but a resonance that seemed to pass directly into his mind. Trees arched in impossible angles, their leaves shimmering like molten silver, and the ground beneath him pulsed with gentle vibrations, as if the very earth was breathing in time with him. In the distance, a structure appeared, an archway carved from translucent stone suspended above a bridge that floated over an abyss of shifting colors. The bridge did not touch the earth. It hovered, supported by nothing yet impossibly solid. Whispers urged him forward, soft and insistent, carrying fragments of stories, fragments of warnings, and fragments of hope. Elric realized the veil's nature. It was not only a test of perception, but a reflection of intent. The forest, the valley, the floating bridge. They all responded to him, revealing truths only when he moved with curiosity and courage. He stepped onto the bridge. Each movement sent ripples through the air, and the abyss beneath shimmered with visions of lives never lived and worlds never touched. The experience was dizzying, yet exhilarating. Elric felt his mind expand, perceiving layers of reality simultaneously. The bridge, the valley, the whispers, the echoes of the crystalline tower behind him, and something deeper still, an understanding that the veil was alive, a consciousness that unfolded as he moved within it. Halfway across, shadows gathered, dense and undulating, forming shapes that were neither hostile nor benign. They were puzzles, reflections of the inner questions he had carried for years, questions about purpose, courage, and the unseen forces that guided life. The whispers became clearer. Each shadow required recognition, understanding, and engagement. Elric realized he could not simply walk past them. He had to acknowledge them, learn from them, and move forward with intention. He reached out, and one shadow leaned closer, forming a shape reminiscent of a bird in flight. The whispers resonated. Freedom is choice, yet choice requires awareness. Do you see yourself truly, or only the reflection others have given you? Elric considered this, sensing that the question was not meant for an immediate answer, but for a contemplation that would unfold over time. He nodded, acknowledging the shadow, and it dissolved, leaving him with a sense of insight and calm. Further along, the bridge split into multiple paths, each shimmering differently. One path glowed softly, lined with symbols he recognized from the crystalline tower. Another shimmered with hues entirely new, as if painted from emotions rather than light. A third path appeared fractal, folding in on itself infinitely. The whispers murmured simultaneously, a symphony of guidance and challenge. He realized that each path represented a choice not only of direction, but of perspective, and that to choose was to define a part of himself. Trusting the rhythm of the whispers, Elric stepped onto the middle path. The colors pulsed in response, and the air shimmered with stories waiting to be revealed. Shapes emerged within the hues, animals, celestial formations, and glimpses of cities from forgotten ages. Each vision carried a lesson, a moment of awareness that demanded his attention and reflection. As he absorbed them, he felt himself changing subtly, not physically, but in perception, understanding, and depth. At the end of the path, he reached a plateau suspended in light. The horizon stretched endlessly, yet the landscape itself seemed alive, breathing with the pulse of countless unseen beings. There, standing at the center, was a figure, radiant yet indistinct, like a memory formed from light and shadow. The figure extended a hand, and a river of images flowed toward him. Possibilities, challenges, joys, and revelations from countless existences. "You have come far," the figure said, voice resonating like a chord of crystal. "But the heart of the veil remains ahead. What you have learned will guide you, but you must also unlearn. Every certainty must be questioned, every perception challenged. Only then can you walk the true path of understanding." Elric reached out and touched the river of images. In an instant, memories, visions, and knowledge flooded him. Forests that sang, mountains that moved, oceans that reflected not water but thought. He glimpsed travelers like himself, some lost, some transformed, all woven into the living tapestry of the veil. Each revelation was exhilarating and disorienting, yet he felt clarity emerging. The veil was not simply a place to traverse, but A journey to experience fully, a dance between observation, participation, and reflection. The figure stepped aside, and a doorway formed, carved from pure luminescence. Beyond it lay the next stage of his journey, a landscape that defied any previous logic, where shadows and light intertwined in dynamic harmony. Whispers swirled around, him carrying fragments of ancient truths, riddles, and promises. Elric knew instinctively that the path ahead would demand more than courage. It would demand insight, presence, and an embrace of uncertainty. As he stepped through the doorway, the plateau behind him dissolved into a cascade of color and sound. He entered a realm where time moved differently, folding and unfolding like a living tapestry. Shadows took form as teachers, guides, and echoes of himself. The air vibrated with knowledge, emotion, and potential, urging him to perceive beyond the obvious, to trust both intuition and reason. And then he heard it, a single clear whisper, distinct from the rest. Every journey has a heart. Find it, and the veil will reveal its deepest truths. But beware, the heart does not yield to hesitation. Elric's pulse quickened. He understood that he was approaching the true essence of the veil, a place where all lessons, revelations, and experiences converged. The landscape shifted in response to his anticipation, revealing pathways of light that bent impossibly, shadows that danced with intent, and visions that demanded his full attention. With resolve, he stepped forward, embracing the unknown. Each heartbeat, each thought, each glance shaped the unfolding world. The veil was alive, listening, guiding, and challenging. And in that moment, Elric understood the first profound truth of the heart, that to journey truly, one must surrender. Not to the veil, but to the rhythm of discovery itself. The horizon shimmered, and the adventure intensified. Shadows whispered, lights pulsed, and the path forward promised revelations beyond imagination. Elric walked on, fully immersed, fully alive, and ready to meet the mysteries that awaited at the very center of the veil of whispering shadows. Elric moved forward, the realm around him a living mosaic of color, shadow, and resonance. Every step sent vibrations through the ground, ripples through the air, and currents through the mind. He realized the veil responded not only to his body but to the intent behind every action, the weight of every thought. The floating pathways ahead twisted and reformed, sometimes splitting, sometimes converging, as if the very world was testing his perception. As he stepped onto one particularly luminous path, the colors around him deepened into rich, iridescent shades, reflecting memories he didn't know he carried. Whispered echoes of long-forgotten experiences floated past him, glimpses of joy, loss, wonder, and unspoken questions. Each echo pressed him to notice the subtleties, to find meaning not in the spectacle itself, but in the layers beneath it. The veil, he understood, was teaching him to see beyond appearances, to feel the essence of existence in its infinite forms. Elric soon encountered a vast expanse, a plain of reflective mist stretching to impossible horizons. Shapes moved within it, creatures both familiar and alien, shadows that danced without origin, and figures that seemed like fractured versions of himself. The whispers coalesced, forming phrases that resonated directly in his mind. Perception is not understanding. Intention shapes the unseen. Step carefully. He moved slowly, choosing his steps with care, each one shaping the reflections in the mist. Some forms acknowledged him, bowing subtly, vanishing when he drew near. Others challenged him, forming barriers of light and shadow that demanded patience and insight to navigate. Elric realized the veil tested not only courage but awareness, the ability to act with both mind and heart aligned. Hesitation could confuse it. Clarity could transform it. At the heart of the plain, a tower of liquid light rose, coiling into the sky like a spiral of thought made solid. Its surface shifted constantly, revealing glimpses of infinite worlds, memories of travelers who had come before, and visions of possibilities yet unformed. The whispers now spoke as one voice, urgent but serene. To ascend, you must release all certainty. To see the heart of the veil, you must embrace both the known and the unknowable. Elric approached the tower. Each step seemed to slow time itself, yet simultaneously accelerate his perception. He felt every heartbeat as an echo through the fabric of the veil, every breath intertwining with the rhythms of the realm. The spiral of the tower called to him, each turn revealing more of the infinite tapestry of existence. He began to climb, feeling the weight and the wonder of the journey pressing on him simultaneously. As he ascended, the air shimmered with visions, cities built upon impossible geometries, forests that moved as living organisms, skies that reflected consciousness itself. Shadows danced along the walls, forming riddles and guidance in equal measure. Elric understood that the veil's lessons were cumulative. Every experience, every choice, every insight he had gained shaped the very fabric of the tower, guiding him upward. Midway through the ascent, the spiral widened into a chamber suspended in light. The chamber's floor was liquid crystal, reflecting not only his body, but the infinite possibilities of his journey. At its center floated a prism of radiant energy, radiating a pulse that seemed to align with his heartbeat. Elric approached, and as he did, the prism began to respond, its colors shifting to mirror his thoughts and emotions. "You have journeyed far," a voice resonated from the prism. "Neither male nor female, neither distant nor near. But the heart of the veil requires more than presence. It requires surrender to the flow, understanding of the unseen, and courage to confront what you cannot yet comprehend." Elric extended his hand toward the prism. The moment he touched it, waves of insight flooded him, visions of the forest, the crystalline tower, the floating pathways, and every shadow he had encountered. He perceived the interconnectedness of all things, the whispers, the shapes, the paths, the travelers, and the veil itself. Understanding and uncertainty intertwined, forming a truth that was not a statement, but a living experience. Suddenly the chamber shifted. Walls of light and shadow dissolved into a vast open expanse where multiple realms intersected. Time no longer flowed linearly. Past, present, and possible futures swirled together in luminous patterns. The veil revealed itself fully as an ecosystem of consciousness, a living, breathing tapestry of existence. Elric understood that to move forward, he must let go of familiar anchors, releasing expectation and embracing the fluidity of all that was, is, and could be. A path of pure light appeared, extending into the horizon. Shadows rose to form gateways, each reflecting a challenge, a question, or a truth. The whispers guided him softly. Walk deliberately. Observe wholly. The heart of the veil is not distant. It is here, within every choice you make. Elric stepped onto the path. Every stride carried resonance, each movement shaping the unfolding landscape. The shadows and lights responded, forming patterns that reflected his growing understanding. He realized then that the veil's ultimate lesson was not a secret to uncover, but an experience to embody. The unity of perception, intention, and awareness. The horizon shimmered with promise. The air vibrated with the collective knowledge of countless travelers, and the whispers wove into a symphony of insight and invitation. Elric felt a profound connection to the veil, to the journeys of those who had come before, and to the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. Each step was both a revelation and a test, and he moved forward with clarity, courage, and a sense of wonder that transcended fear or doubt. As he approached the heart of the path, a convergence of light and shadow formed before him, a place where the essence of the veil pulsed visibly, a living core of knowledge, perception, and infinite potential. Elric understood. The final threshold was near. The culmination of his journey was not merely about discovery, but about becoming a part of the veil itself, participating in its living rhythm and embracing the unity of all that it encompassed. With anticipation and resolve, he stepped forward, fully present, fully aware, and ready to embrace the ultimate revelation at the core of the veil of whispering shadows. Elric stepped into the convergence, and the world around him shifted into a realm that defied all prior understanding. Light and shadow no longer opposed each other but wove together in patterns of infinite complexity. The whispers became a symphony, each note carrying knowledge, emotion, and memory from countless beings who had traversed the veil. The air pulsed with awareness, and for the first time, Aelric sensed that he was not merely observing but participating in the living consciousness of the veil itself. Before him, a vast crystalline sphere floated suspended in nothingness, radiating waves of energy that resonated with the deepest parts of his being. He could feel the pulse of the veil emanating from it, each beat synchronized with his own. The sphere was not just an object. It was the heart of the veil, the point where perception, understanding, and intention converged into a single, living truth. As he approached, the whispers crystallized into voices, each one layered atop the other, offering insight, guidance, and challenge. To see fully, you must let go. To know the veil, you must surrender all preconceptions. To move forward, you must become aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every choice. Aelric extended his hands toward the sphere. The moment he touched it, an overwhelming clarity washed through him. He saw the entirety of the veil, not as a place, but as a living, breathing entity composed of thought, memory, intention, and possibility. He perceived the interwoven paths of countless travelers, their experiences etched into the fabric of the veil, each ripple shaping the whole. Visions cascaded through his mind, cities built from light and sound, forests that responded to emotion, oceans reflecting consciousness itself. He felt the unity of all existence, the flow of cause and effect, and the delicate balance between observation and participation. Every choice, every thought, every act was a thread in the living tapestry, and he was both observer and participant. And then he realized the most profound truth. The veil was not a secret to uncover, nor a puzzle to solve. It was an experience to embody. Its wisdom was not given. It was lived. To walk the veil fully was to understand that existence itself is a dance between perception, intention, and awareness, where every shadow, every whisper, every light contributes to the harmony of the whole. The sphere pulsed again, and the realm around him responded, folding and reshaping in perfect synchrony with his consciousness. He felt his own awareness expand, stretching across the veil, touching past, present, and possible futures simultaneously. He understood that the journey had been both outward and inward, a path through realms of wonder and mystery, and a path into the deepest layers of his own understanding. Aelric's presence resonated through the veil, and the whispers became a singular, harmonious voice. You have come fully, yet there is no end. The journey continues in every choice, every perception, every heartbeat. The veil is infinite, and so too is the capacity to see, to understand, and to transform. He stepped back, and the sphere's radiance expanded, filling the convergence with light and shadow in perfect balance. Every path he had walked, every vision he had seen, every lesson he had absorbed coalesced into a singular awareness. The veil was no longer something outside him. It was within, alive in every thought and breath. The landscape dissolved into a luminous horizon, and Aelric felt a profound serenity. He understood that the veil's gift was not revelation alone, but transformation. Every step he had taken, every whisper he had heard, every shadow he had encountered had shaped him into a being capable of perceiving the infinite, embracing the unknown, and moving forward with awareness and courage. And as he looked out across the boundless expanse of the veil, he knew that the journey was eternal. The heart of the veil would always pulse, always whisper, always unfold new layers of wonder and understanding. And Aelric, now fully attuned to its rhythm, walked onward, not as a traveler seeking answers, but as a participant in the living, breathing tapestry of existence. The whispers sang in harmony with his heartbeat. The shadows danced with joy and anticipation, and the light stretched infinitely in all directions. He had crossed thresholds, embraced the unknown, and emerged transformed. The veil of whispering shadows was no longer a mystery to him. It was a reality to inhabit, a rhythm to follow, a world to engage with fully. And in that infinite convergence of perception, intention, and awareness, Aelric understood the ultimate truth of the veil, that every journey, no matter how long or arduous, leads not to an end, but to the continuous unfolding of wonder, insight, and existence itself. The adventure continued, eternal and alive in the heart of the Vale of Whispering Shadows.